I need to confirm. Where's my cursor? There we go. Okay.
Hi, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Today, I have with me someone who stands out for being supportive towards the most vulnerable. She stands for and reaches out to the most vulnerable. She stands for the most vulnerable women and girls on the run. She uses her art to empower girls and women. She is an international artist, a human rights activist, and a filmmaker. Her film, In Solidarity, The Migration Blanket, is going to be screened at Coventry City of Culture 2021 from 14th of June. I have with me Salma Zulfiqar. Welcome, Salma.
Thank you. Thank you, Salma. Nice to be with you.
How are you, Salma?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, we're still in partial lockdown in the UK, but apart from that, doing well.
I would like to know about the film because that is the most important thing I think we have at the moment in solidarity, the migration blanket. It sounds amazing, and I've seen the trailer. I think it's the best you've produced, and we are all excited about the screening at Coventry.
Thank you. Thanks. The film is a short animated art film which was created in lockdown last year with women and girls around the world. When the crisis broke out last year, I run workshops called Art Connects in different community spaces and places in the UK, and was beginning to deliver them abroad as well. And once the lockdown happened and the coronavirus started spreading, I was forced to stop working. And a lot of people's work, a lot of artists' work, filmmakers' work was obviously cancelled as well. I decided to take the project online with support from different partners such as the UNHCR and the UK Arts Council and the Midlands Arts Centre, and started to work with girls and women in different cities in the UK, and then eventually expanding it abroad, bringing in girls and women from different countries, such as Pakistan, India, Jordan, Yemen, Kenya, Niger, Turkey, and Greece, and other countries. And brought them together so that they could express themselves in a way that they hadn't been able to in this crisis. So we ended up with a film called In Solidarity, The Migration Blanket, which features over 100 pieces of artwork from these women from all over the world. The project was started in 2018 originally as a canvas artwork in Birmingham in the UK, which is where I'm from. And, it tells the stories of women suffering and their hopes and dreams. That was exhibited during the Venice Biennale in 2019. And then when lockdown happened, the project continued, and we took it into a digital form. So the film really tells their stories about their suffering in silence and gives them a voice, gives marginalized girls and women a voice during this pandemic, and their voices that have been rarely heard.
Like, if I ask you, like, what has been the key motive or like the key source of inspiration for you to embark on a project like this? Like, there must have been some great source of motivation for you to do something like this, a film like
Sure.
this.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, we're living in a world where hate is increasing, and racism, racist attacks. If you look at the statistics in the UK, racist attacks increased by almost 40% in June last year. So these attacks and the divisions that are being created in society following Brexit, following events around the world, following the lockdown, following the crisis, has made my work, well, that's what started it, and it has made it even more important now to be able to go back into communities in a safe way and keep working with people to create peace and tolerance. And that's what my work is all about. It's about integration. It's about creating peacemakers in communities and promoting cultural understanding through art and film.
Since you've mentioned racist attacks and you've said that there has been an increase, so like, is there any particular attack or like an instance of hate crime you would like to mention from UK?
Yeah, I mean, the girls that I work with, one of the girls who was a refugee from Somalia, spoke about being faced with a knife attack when she first arrived in the country, and she thought she was going to die, basically. We've all faced racism at some point in our lives, and that continues. Unfortunately, and there are many instances of where people are discriminated against, and they don't have the means to be able to speak out about it. So the project really allows them to do that in a creative way.
Since we are talking about racism, and you must be familiar with that BLM, Black Lives Matter, is like quite popular in US, and like it has created a global hype as well. So like, what's your take on that and the instances we've seen in US related to racism?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally unacceptable. The Black Lives Matters movement is important, and I just hope that it continues and it doesn't, it continues to gain support, and that it still is there at the forefront of people's minds at the end of the year, not just now when we're seeing it in the news again and again, and after the murder of George Floyd. But one of the things I would say is that we, through our work, we promote equality, and that's bringing people into our project from all walks of life at all times of the year, throughout the year, and that's how we plan to continue. So diversity, inclusion, equality, all of these things are at the very core of what we're doing in Art Connects, and will continue to be. And that's what I'm pushing for through my work as well.
You mentioned that everyone has experienced racism at some point in life. So, like, if you feel like sharing it, would you like to share anything you felt like or like you experienced racism in any form or any manifestation in your life at any point in life?
Sure. I mean, there have been many, I would say many instances, but I will talk now as as an artist, a woman of color, working in the arts. For every 100 opportunities that are out there for an artist, perhaps one will go to an artist of color, and that would be down to discrimination or racism. We've heard people talking about how often, curators, etc., gallery owners, they will only take, one artist or of color in a year, for example, just to hit their quota. So that's not really the way we should be working. I mean, obviously, talent needs to be recognized, but it needs to be done in a way that is also promoting equality and diversity.
I think you are a positive change maker in your community, but to say that there remains a need to have a greater change in society in general when it comes to the attitudes towards people related to their race, gender, ethnicity. So, what do you think can be a solution to move towards a world which is free of hatred based on race, ethnicity, religion, or gender?
Well, I think there needs to be a lot more work on a grassroots level, and I think we're seeing lots of cutbacks in communities, for example, in the UK, that need to be redressed. I think art and culture and film has a huge role to play, and we've seen many cutbacks on this over the last few years, in the last 5 years, and I really believe that there needs to be more avenues and platforms for people to be able to come together in a non-threatening environment, and have these very awkward conversations that people really don't want to approach at the best of times. So that's what we're doing, and I really hope that people are able to see that we need to keep building our communities. We all have to live together in peace and with peace and tolerance, especially in this situation where people are suffering in many different ways. And the UK has had one of the highest death tolls for the coronavirus as well in Europe. So I'm really hoping that people can come together, and for example, the film, I hope, has an impact on communities and people watching it to be more compassionate. I really hope that it can help influence policymaking, humane policymaking for migration. And, one of the big issues that came out throughout this project is the situation of mental health as well. And that also impacts the way people behave and how communities operate and cooperate. So this is something else that I think really needs to be addressed. People from migrant and refugee backgrounds, some of them have been fleeing conflict and have already been traumatized. And this trauma has been compounded by what's been happening in lockdown, by the lockdown. So that's also something that needs to be taken into consideration.
Can we say that being a woman and then being a woman of color can be a double jeopardy, a double whammy, a situation that can be troublesome for someone living or like fleeing to a country like UK or anywhere in West? Because there are people fleeing to West from countries like Iran, Afghanistan, Somalia, as you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Women, we're seeing already the statistics of how this, this situation, the crisis, is going to affect women's rights. We're already seeing that happening. Domestic violence has increased enormously during this period as well. So they're absolutely at a disadvantage. Sometimes they don't have the support they need. Many times, that happens. And also there may be cultural issues as well that they're facing. So there's a lot of different things to take into consideration, and they need protection, when they're on the move, when they're fleeing. This is what some of my other artwork also calls for, protection for women and children who are the most vulnerable in this situation.
As you said that there should be humane policy making. So I think you need to elaborate a bit more on that because we need to understand what should be that humane policy making.
Well, I think, what's in Europe at the moment, there is a move to restrict migration. And I think we need to look at the bigger picture. I've been to Pakistan, I've been to the camps there, for example, and in Turkey. Both countries are hosting almost 3 million refugees. It's a huge number and a huge burden. And we're seeing more and more restrictions in Europe. The UK, for example, hosts around 130,000 refugees. So let's look at the balance. And in a global pandemic, I think we need to have more humanity and humanitarian focus when we're looking at policy making on this issue. So that would be, that's one of the main things that the film is calling for as well.
As I see, like there has been a focus on girls and women. So, like, what do you think on people from different other backgrounds, like people facing discrimination or persecution because of their gender or because of their sexual orientation? For example, the LGBTQ community in Iran, in Afghanistan. Like, there are people from that community fleeing to West, seeking asylum there from persecution. So what do you think on people fleeing because of their gender, because of their sexual orientation, and also because of political differences? For example, we've seen that in Myanmar, where there is a coup right now. A coup took place in February 2021, and since then there has been this violent crackdown on opposition and as well as on protesters who are protesting against the coup. So people have been fleeing these type of situations and these type of countries which are vulnerable to conflict, which are prone to war as well.
Yeah, these people need protection. One of the things that we do in Art Connects is also promote LGBTQ rights. We have people from the LGBT community joining us in workshops and represented in the film as well. It's very important to be inclusive and to ensure that that they have their say and that they are part of our, and show that they are part of our communities. Basically. So, it's very much at the core of what we're doing as well. Promoting that is really key right now. I was speaking earlier about hate crimes. The increase of hate crimes over the past year, there's been a sharp increase against the LGBT community. So this is totally unacceptable, and we have to accept people for who they are. And that is what equality is all about.